The fleshy outer ear collects the sounds that surround us and channels them down the ear canal to vibrate the eardrum. On the other side of the drum, these vibrations are transmitted through the middle ear by minute bones. These are the only bones that stop growing soon after birth. An adult has ear bones the same size as a newborn baby. We went even further into the detail of the ear with another imaging technique called scanning electron microscopy. If we zoom right the way in with an electron microscope, we should see something remarkable, the secret of how sound is transmitted to the brain. They're rows of minute hairs only a few thousandths of a millimeter high. As noise vibrates them, they send electrical signals to the brain which we experience as sound.
An SEM, or scanning electron microscope, is a special type of microscope that uses electrons instead of light to look at something. With this microscope we can go to a magnification of about times 300,000. But for most biological specimens, about times 50,000 is plenty. At times 50,000 you could see details on the surface of an individual bacterium.
To prepare an SEM, Paul puts the tiny specimen through a complex process of fixing to preserve it. Then he dips it in chemicals to remove all traces of water.
If I was to put the specimen straight into the microscope with it containing water, the vacuum inside the microscope will cause the specimen simply to explode.
It then has to go into a pressure chamber to finish off the dehydration process. Believe it or not, it's then coated in 24-karat gold, which makes it visible in an electron beam.
Once coated, the specimen can be put into the microscope on this special motorized stage. The camera position inside the microscope is fixed, so the only way we can get movement in the sample is to actually move the sample itself. I create the moving sequence using a method called stop frame animation.
Stop frame animation is a painstaking technique, a bit like making cartoons. This is an egg in the fallopian tube. Hundreds of still pictures are taken, each time in a slightly different position, to create movement. A 30-second sequence like this can take surprisingly long to make.
The whole process for a single specimen can take about 3 days from beginning to end to complete.
With SEMs, we've been able to show you some amazing details. Here, the surface of the tongue. And here, hair growing. And different types of hair. Asian hair is circular in cross-section, so it tends to hang straight. Black people have hair which is a flat oval, so it naturally tends to form tight curls. Caucasians or white Europeans have hair halfway between the two, so they tend to have slightly wavy hair. And here, a human egg, and 100 times smaller, human sperm on its surface. Images like this might make conception look easy, but it's not. Kate Hardy is a member of my research team at Hammersmith Hospital in London. For our programme on pregnancy, she filmed a remarkable sequence never seen before on television.
So what we have here is a microscope which enables us to look at the embryo at a high magnification, so we can see what the embryo's doing while it's developing. And round the microscope we've got this perspex box. The embryo can't grow at room temperature. We have to keep it at 37 degrees centigrade, which is the same temperature as the human body. And we find the embryo, focus on it, set the video recorder going so that we have one shot every 2 seconds, and we leave the embryo there for about a week. So this is a very, very nice technique for looking at development over a long period of time and compacting it down to a short period of time so that you can see the changes that are taking place. What you start off with is a fertilised egg, which is a large cell, and this cell will divide about once every day initially. And these cells carry on dividing until there are about 8 or 16 cells about 3 days after the one-cell stage. And then finally, it gets to the stage where it wants to hatch out of the jelly coating that has been protecting it during earlier development, and then it's ready to implant in the lining of the womb. I think the most exciting thing that we've seen so far is the way the cells divide, the speed that it happens over. You get a real feel for the fact that there's a long period of time when nothing happens, and then suddenly you get a cell division, and then another day goes by where nothing happens, and then another cell division. It's amazing watching that on screen.
It's one thing to film an embryo under a microscope. It's quite another to find a way to film the fetus growing in the womb.
The only way you can get into the human body without cutting it open and seeing what's in there is to use an endoscope, which is like a mini telescope, little narrow telescope that you can look through small holes or naturally occurring orifices without having to do any damage to the patient. The endoscopes have a dual system. One is an optical system for getting the image out, and the second is a fibre optic system which allows you to take light in. The amount you get depends therefore on the size of the scope you can use. If you can use a big endoscope, you're looking in something big like the gut. If you're looking into something very small, where you need to use a very narrow scope, then the light problems get worse because everything's small.
Here's another example of how David Barlow used an endoscope in the series. Food doesn't fall from your mouth to your stomach. When your brain tells you to swallow, it triggers waves of muscle contractions. They squeeze things along in your esophagus at around 4 centimeters per second. The first scheduled stop is the stomach. It's essentially a biological liquidizer. Its lining is covered in delicate folds which allow it to expand with each mouthful. Inside, a mixture of enzymes and hydrochloric acid start to digest your food. And very probably, your dinner's still in there. It churns away for about 4 hours. Soon, it'll be released into your small intestine and, at a cue from your brain, bile will be added. This will help you break down fats. You'll be carrying tonight's dinner for about 24 hours. So I hope you liked it.
These are the light guides, and this is the lens.
David also needed to get good pictures of the vocal cords in action.
The mouth,
Yeah,
until we see the vocal cords.
right.
And then we'll try to get, we want to do some shots where we'll try and get you to, we'll track across the tongue, but we'll do it in reverse. So we'll probably get lined up,
Yeah.
get you to sound a note,
And then
hold it, and then we'll pull
work
out.
Yep.
And all I'm going to do is watch and instruct. When you make a sound, vocal cords vibrate at anything from 100 to maybe 500 or 600 vibrations a second. If you look at them directly under direct light, they're just a blur. If you use a strobe light, then you can effectively halt the movement of the cords. Even though they're vibrating, you stop their apparent movement, and that allows you to see all the interesting little ripples and things that are going on the surface of the cords.
That's phenomenal.
I agreed to do this because I thought it would actually be an interesting experience. It's I've never seen my vocal cords before, and they do look quite cool on the screen. I've never seen them move. I had no idea how they were going to work, so it was very interesting to see.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a sword swallower.
Another day, another orifice, the ear.
That's not showing what we want.
Nothing wrong with my ears. Very good, actually. Well, it's ear of experience, a headache.
focus back just a little bit and stop. Okay.
The endoscope is probably not going that far into the head. It probably goes about 1 centimetre. Ear canals tend to be quite bendy and curvy, and so you need this little device just to sort of get you around the corner. And then it's just a matter of how close you want to go. You can go right up, almost touching the drum. And if you do that, if the eardrum is clear enough and clean enough, you are seeing the bones through on the other side.
Yep. Happy? I'm happy. Cool.
Throughout the series, we combine documentary filming with endoscopic shots to reveal the intricate workings of the body. However, you can't film everything in the body with an endoscope, so we used another remarkable technique, medical scanning.
When we started the series, we were very keen that we were only going to show things that you really could see inside the body. And that presents a big problem because there are obviously some places that you can't get to with a camera. So we needed some kind of graphic technique, some representation of the body that was accurate, that was really what was going on inside.
In our film on pregnancy, we scanned our mum-to-be, Philippa, in a magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI machine. We did this before she was pregnant to illustrate the geography of her body. The machine uses magnetic fields to scan slices of her body, which are put together to create the whole image.
The difficulty is that the way it's used in medicine is very opaque, it's very difficult, unless you're really trained, to know, to make sense of that information. So what we set out to do was to use the data that medicine can give us, big scanners, CT scans, MRI scans, and to try and bring to that some of the aesthetic charm and style of television graphics, the kind of things that we're all used to seeing on TV, in computer games. Fly through things, voyage around them. And so we worked with a medical imaging company to write a computer program that could do that for us.